It was Margaret Mead, the famous anthropologist in the 20th century, who was asked the question once at a conference, what marked the first sign of human civilization? And the answer that she gave was surprising. They didn't expect what she was going to say because they were expecting something like perhaps a tool or a piece of pottery or a piece of art. But she didn't say that. In fact, she said a healed, broken femur. The femur being the upper bone in the leg. And she explained herself. She said before they had found this seemingly insignificant thing, it was survival of the fittest. But once they found this healed, broken femur, they realized that this no longer applied. Now someone had to hunt and gather for this person. Someone had to care for this person while they were healing because they could not do this for themselves. Something that seemed insignificant would be important. And she said this was the first sign. The first sign that marked the beginning of human civilization was compassion. Can you imagine compassion being something seemingly insignificant can be the beginning of human civilization? Well, we have something else that seems insignificant here in our gospel this morning. In fact, in this story, which is told in all four gospels, there is a seemingly insignificant detail that is shared in John's gospel. In John's gospel alone. And that is the detail of a little boy. So we have the seemingly insignificant detail of a little boy, as well as the seemingly insignificant detail of a little bit of food. So we have a little boy, a little bit of food, and a little bit of compassion. This little boy, if you remember from last week, Jesus and his disciples wanted to get away for a little bit because Jesus had sent his disciples 2 by 2, going out to preach and to heal, and wanted to take some time away for themselves. Jesus had been doing that nonstop. And the crowds had figured out where they were going to go. And so they had walked the upper rim, the northern rim of this lake, and this little boy along with them. Quite a distance. This little boy had this little bit of food. It was probably his daily ration for himself. When Andrew asked him to share this, he could have said, "No, this is my food." But he didn't do that. This seemingly insignificant act he shared. Or he could have went along with Andrew himself and said, "Okay, I'll give it, but what good is this? So little for so many." But he didn't do that either. He gave it to Jesus. Jesus took it. He blessed it. And he distributed it and fed thousands. The gospel says 5,000 men, but there were women and children as well, so there were thousands more. Something seemingly insignificant. That's God's grace. God takes something little and makes it large. Something seemingly insignificant and makes it grand, profound, salvific. When I was in seminary, I remember in one of my theology classes, I can't remember, it was Christology, sacraments, I don't remember. But the professor was talking and was going over our heads. We weren't quite getting what he was saying, and he could sense that, and he stopped. And what he did is he turned around and he took the chalk. This was when we still had chalk and chalkboards, right? And he drew an arrow and pointed it down, an arrow facing down. And he looked at us and he says, everything that I'm saying, all the details theologically can be summed up in this sign. And I want you to think about this and reflect on this until our next class. And then he left. And I was looking at that and I'm thinking, oh no. He's saying I'm going to hell. And that's official. Well, the next class came and he drew that arrow again, pointing down, and he had all of our attention. And he said, look, everything that I've been teaching you can be summed up in the fact that God comes down. God always comes down. And God still comes down. God comes down in the seemingly insignificant signs of bread and wine, in water, and in all of the other seemingly insignificant sacramental signs. Here we are. And for the next 4 weeks, we will be hearing from John's Gospel, chapter 6. We're going to hear all of chapter 6. And Jesus is going to get into the details of the bread of life discourse. For the next 4 weeks, he's going to get into the details, but we can sum it up in that arrow facing down. Jesus is saying, God always comes down, that the bread of life discourse can be summed up in that God always comes down and still comes down. When those people were walking over that northern rim of the Sea of Galilee, they were drawn to Jesus not just for their physical hunger, but more importantly, for their spiritual hunger. They were drawn to him, and we are drawn to him too, because we are spiritually hungry. And God comes down to us today to feed us, to nurture us, to dwell within us. May the Lord give us the grace to see with eyes of faith, to celebrate this, and to proclaim this as it's proclaimed in the gospel this morning. Truly, this is a prophet. Indeed, more than a prophet. The Son of God, the Messiah. The one who is to come, who has come down into the world. Who comes down this very day among us here at St. Raphael's. Amen? Amen. God bless you.